Today I'm talking to an author who, as a child, wanted to make movies like Star Wars, so she started her storytelling career by drawing pictures. Her first job was drawing maps for Lonely Planet. She started reading the Aurealis magazine, I always go to say Aurora Aurealis, from the first issue, and she volunteered as a graphic designer for the Aurealis magazine for 9 years. Her published fantasy includes short stories and a number of trilogies. The Age of Five trilogy is set in Athenia, and her Coralia series includes the Black Magician trilogy, the prequel standalone Magician's Apprentice, and the Traitor Spy trilogy. Welcome, Trudi Canavan.
Thank you very much, Nalini.
You fell in love with books at a very early age.
I did. I actually distinctly remember the moment. I didn't particularly like reading when I was in primary school. And then I discovered this bookshelf of readers in the school hall, and I just started reading them, and I just gained momentum until I read the entire thing right through to several years past my age group. And then I was just devouring. I was going to the library. My dad always had little bookshelves all around the house, and even if I couldn't understand what was in the books, I'd still look through all the pictures and read various sections that I could comprehend. And he started bringing home, he used to raid the little $2 tables at bookshops and bring me books home. So I had everything from books on biology and other cultures and fiction, anything that he picked up that he thought that I would really enjoy.
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
What authors have influenced you in particular?
I was probably one of the lucky generations that had an established young adult world out there when I was at that age. So I was reading John Christopher and Ursula Le Guin and Mary Gentle, Diana Wynne Jones, all these sorts of books at exactly the right age. And I know my mum probably wouldn't have had that at her age. She would have had Enid Blyton, but not much beyond that. It was children's books, and then you graduated to adult books. So that would have been pretty much the start of especially science fiction and fantasy. And then I easily read beyond my age group again, and like a lot of other writers, discovered Lord of the Rings at 14. I was very lucky because they were on the ABC radio show in the mornings on Saturdays or Sundays. I can't remember. I remember it was the weekend. It was before my swimming lesson. And I used to tune into that, and they were doing all these audio books of lots of science fiction and fantasy, and they started the Lord of the Rings at exactly the same time as I bought the book. So I was listening to the series, and of course I read a lot faster than the series because it's something like 36 episodes, so it's half a year that the radio show goes. And so I was reading along with it. Even after I'd finished it, I'd go back and read and say, oh, they cut that bit out. That's interesting.
Wow, yes, I remember the radio show. You initially wanted to make movies.
Yes, I think I would have been about grade 4 or 5 when the middle Star Wars movie came out, The Empire Strikes Back. And that movie affected me profoundly. I remember going, no, Darth Vader can't possibly be his father, no. And yeah, I remember going down to in the schoolyard at lunchtime, and all the boys were pretending to be TIE fighters and having battles, and I joined in, and I thought I was the coolest girl in school. And I said to someone, I don't remember who, probably a teacher, that I wanted to make movies, and they said it was very hard to get into, and why don't you write your ideas down? So that's how I came to be writing and drawing, mostly drawing at that stage, because I didn't think I was very good at writing, and I just kept the habit going. And yeah, the more I read, the more it sort of fed into that. And then there was Lord of the Rings, where I decided that actually this was probably more what I wanted to do. I wanted to invent a world that seemed that real.
Mm. And when you left high school, you studied promotional display.
Yes, I found a book in my local library, and I think it was called Writing for the Love of It. And it recommended that you never ever write for your living. You should always have it as your second job. And it cited all these reasons, like if you did get published, then the only time you'll ever see your book in a bookshop will be face down with a dead fly on it, things like that. So, sorry, I should have said that while we were drinking. So I thought this is wise advice. I'm not going to make writing my job. I'll do something else. And of course, the other wisdom is that you need to live a little. You need to get out there and have a life before you can really write, well and a well-rounded writer. So I decided that art and design was going to be my career. Though I must admit, there was a stage there where I thought science might be. But I remember this is the mid-'80s. The careers counsellor at school said, "Oh, there's no jobs for women in science. Do the arts instead." I think it's really, in retrospect, that's appalling. But I mean, I suppose I've always said that the art probably suited my character better. I'm too much of an exaggerator, and I don't think you're supposed to exaggerate in science.
No, no. Science is a lot of meticulous research. I think you've got to have a wealth of patience to work in the sciences.
Well, it's not like you don't need a wealth of patience to be a writer as well, particularly long fantasy trilogies.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, it's a different sort of patience though.
Yes, yes. Your first job was drawing maps for the Lonely Planet.
Well, I was drawing as well. I was employed as a designer, but the design not just involved laying out books, doing covers and things like that, but also with publicity material, drawing maps and doing illustration work. And it was the illustration work that caught their eye because I did some work experience there. And they saw that I could draw and they needed people who could draw. So they then employed me and I stayed there for about 4 years. And then after I became a freelance illustrator, I still worked for them, did a lot of work for them then.
How did you transition from the Lonely Planet to writing full time?
Well, there was a stint at Oxford University Press in between where I was a promotional designer. So I was doing catalogues and ads and exhibition displays and things like that. A lot of work that became very useful when I was working for Aurealis. Occasionally they'd need some display work done. So because I'd also done that as well, at Worldcon I did their big display there, and it was kind of it had been a while since I'd actually done it, and I found there was this itch to do it again. I think once a designer, you're always a designer. You can't help it. But yeah, I got to the Oxford job was one of those ones where I started as a maternity leave job, so I was only for 6 months, and then it became a year, and then it became 2 years. But by the end of the 2 years, I pretty much learnt everything I was going to learn. And I remember I went for another job at a publishing company, and I'd actually made my resume a book. I'd sort of sewn it and everything. And they said to me, "We really wanted to interview you just because we love this resume you put together." But they said, they looked at the work I'd done and they said, I don't think you really suit the job you're going for. We just need somebody who's fresh out of uni. But you should be a freelancer. You should go out and be an illustrator because that's where your strength is. So I thought, well, it would make it a lot easier to get any writing done because I always found it very difficult to get a lot of writing done when I was working full time. So that's what I did. I became a freelancer. I had this idea that I would work in the mornings or write in the afternoon or vice versa. And of course, it never turns out like that. When you're a freelancer, you tend to get the jobs that people need done urgently. They have to call someone in because someone fell sick or they, sort of a scheduling problem. And so I would work crazy hours for 2 weeks, collapse for a few days to recover, and then I'd write until I got my next job, and then usually found that after about 2 weeks I couldn't write because I was so worried about where the next job was coming from. So I go into promotion mode and start showing my folio around. So it was very good. By the time I think I'd worked as an illustrator for about 7 or 8 years, and I was a little over it by the time I actually got a publishing contract.
I can imagine, yes. And you've written a number of trilogies. The Age of Five was a best-selling success.
Yes, The Age of Fire was being my second series, was the first one to get on the UK Times bestseller list, but it was really building on the earlier series that I had. That sort of it just took a while for the word. It's one of those things that when you put a series out that's very successful, you look at Rowling and you look at Twilight books. They were around a long time before they actually got that word of mouth going. So that by the time I had that second series out, the first series was really starting to take off. Yeah.
What can you tell us about the age of 5?